I was asked by Brett to speak at this presentation probably 3 months ago, and at that stage I was probably 4.5 years into a multi-million-dollar upgrade at one of our facilities in Victoria. And when trying to pull together the presentation, I was trying to context the difficulty that I have in running this program in the context of what's happening at Telstra. And as an organisation that is quite fast-paced and very reticent to change anything because of the strict nature of our change control systems. But let me start by giving you an overview. So we work in a non-stop business with a cracking pace of change, delivering complex products in high demand, running 4 major data centre projects while keeping data centres running with a complex set of stakeholders in a very complex business. To set the context of tackling a large data centre program in a fast-paced environment, in a 24/7 always available environment with strict and thorough change management, I want to step through a couple of slides that give you some statistics on what Telstra has performed during 2012. So in 2012, we handled over 3 billion local calls, 4.7 billion national long-distance minutes, managed 12 billion text messages, handled more than 16 billion mobile minutes, provided 8.1 million fixed line and 13.8 million mobile services. Our people and contractors on average completed around 23,000 customer service jobs, new services and faults a day. We added over 1.6 million new mobile subscribers in 2012, and I think I saw the latest mid-year results. We've added another 600,000 in the last 2 quarters. So phenomenal mobile growth. We've had 38,000 staff accessing some complex IT systems from a range of devices, be it handheld devices in the field, be it bring your own device, bring it standard laptops, devices in shops. We've operated 24/7 call centres both onshore and offshore, handling over 7 million calls out of hours. So it gives you the context of the size of our organisation and the importance that our organisation puts on servicing the customers to provide these sort of statistics. The pace of change is incredible within our business. If you follow the telecommunications and ICT industry very closely, as I have for the last 28 years, it's incredible to see the pace of change, and particularly in the last 5 to 10 years. These are some quotes from the Australian newspaper recently. The pace of change is accelerating. From May 11 to June 12, the smartphone market grew by 104%. 1 in 2 Australian adults now has a smartphone. Mobile devices demand more bandwidth, so our 4G network is growing incredibly. And the lucky country is fast becoming the mobile country, as the number of mobile internet subscriptions has now reached 22.1 million, just short of our total population of 22.9 million. It's an incredible number of smartphones out there, and Telstra has a large share of that. The context of this is also balanced against our cloud offerings. So our cloud growth continues to drive demand into the data centre environment. A recent quote here says that Telstra's division responsible for cloud services, network application services, is expected to see some 70% revenue growth by 2015. So from a standing start 2 years ago, that's phenomenal growth being driven into my data centre environment. 70% of CIO executives are expected an increase in confidence in using public cloud services in the next 3 years. Spending on public cloud services to Australia is forecast to reach 2.9 billion in 2013, so that's this year. So significant growth this year. So on top of the mobile growth, our cloud offerings keep driving significant demand into the data centre space. This demand needs to be pre-provisioned just in time at locations spread nationally across the data centre fleet. As a data centre operator, I need to keep the lights on and plan the expansion to meet these demands and secure the capital and manage many, many complex stakeholders and then execute against this program. So how do you balance the need for constant change and the business requirements for a 24/7 availability and retrofit one of your key centres from top to bottom? So I thought about this question and I thought about the answer, and you do it very carefully. And when I say carefully, I'll give you an idea of 4 projects that I've run over the last 4 years and one that I'm still in the middle of that will give you a sense of exactly what we've done in Victoria. This is an aerial view of our Clayton facility, and the white dot provides you with a view of the border or the land parcels. And if I can get the laser pointer working. So this is the legacy data centre here. We've got a main building which was the original data centre that was an old factory retrofitted to be a data centre. The annex building is a little bit like the extension put onto your grandmother's house 30 years ago. The operations building was built in 1985. When they built the building, it was a 2-storey building. They decided to fit out 1 floor only, leaving a significant footprint underneath for future growth. This building here, the support building, provides just administration support. We have an external UPS building. We've got an existing energy centre that provides HV reticulation and EPP or diesel backup. And this is one of the projects that I'll talk about. This is where we're building our new data centre on a car park that was adjacent to the existing footprint. And we're landing some new cooling towers just adjacent to there as well. So we took a master plan approach to this site. We sat down with some design engineers and looked at each of the buildings, looked at their age, looked at their purpose, and then decided on how we were going to attack the site from a data centre retrofit and a plan and a build. We also wanted to consolidate the number of buildings and the IT load within them. For example, the main building, having been in place for over 20 years, was full of legacy IT equipment, ripe for consolidation and rationalisation. So we retrofit where it makes sense and we build new where there's space. So project number 1 was affectionately called the sandpit, or unaffectionately called the sandpit, depending on who you talk to. This was the space that I inherited below the operations building. It was about 1,700 square metres of sand that they'd filled in after the building, they finished the building. So directly above, on that floor, directly above, is a live computer room servicing all of the mobile activation systems, many of the general ledger systems, and many corporate support systems for the company, including a small cloud footprint. So any issue with construction in this area was going to have a big impact on the organisation, particularly if I drop load upstairs. This is the finished product. Took us about 18 months to complete. 1,200 square metres of raised floor. It's fairly traditional design, and I was sort of boxed in on how I did the design because of the building fabric and the existing building services. We've built it to 3,000 watts per square metre, so that's 3 kilowatts per square metre. There are 3 400 metre zones, so I can chunk it up into 3 400 metre zones. They're separately cooled and separately powered, so I can take any one of those zones offline, do a refurb, do some maintenance. I did have some restrictions, as I said, on the data centre design. We weren't able to implement free air cooling, due mostly to the fact that the existing building fabric was tilt slab and we couldn't put any external extrusions in. We're also limited to static UPSs because we couldn't get drops into the building. The second project that we ran was affectionately called heart surgery at 36,000 feet. So the data centre room upstairs above that sandpit was 25 years old. It had DX crack units. It had very old, past end of life Thycon UPSs. So I was tasked with upgrading that in situ. So we replaced 46 DX crack units with 14 chill water units, 2 UPS sets with 3 UPS sets in an N+1, and cut the load over. We replaced 4 cooling towers in place, installed and commissioned 4 new chillers, installed chill water standby tanks that look something like a brewery upstairs, and I commented to my team that they were building a brewery upstairs in the top floor. So we got 20 minutes of chilled water. We installed standby reserve water tanks, upgraded and replaced the CCTV systems, upgraded and replaced the EAC systems, and installed what we call chill water reversal. So between some of the older buildings, we decided not to upgrade the chillers in the older buildings, but reticulate the chill water from the new building back through to the old site. It saved us about $20 million in capital, and we've seen significant power savings. And I was talking to a colleague of mine at Telstra this morning. After this project, we saw a significant reduction in the cost of energy consumption throughout the site, just due to new technologies such as replacing DX cracks with chill water cracks, new chillers, new cooling towers. At this site, I've also been able to increase my IT load by 57% and only increase my overall power load by 5%. So I've shifted the energy from the mechanical and electrical into the IT, significantly improving my PUE. The third project that we've run on site is a new energy centre. So again, the old energy centre was end of life. I was also at a position where I was at end with my diesel generators. So in June 2011, we started a project to demolish an old paper store. And this just sort of shows you a pictorial life cycle of what we did over a period of time. The challenges with this, and still challenging because we're in the middle of cutover now, we have had to take the services from the road, so 2 services, a standby and primary electrical service, and reticulate them into this building while maintaining the current site load. So we've managed many switching events to switch from primary to secondary, cut it over, back to secondary, back to primary, cut that one over, and then do flip-flop testing to make sure that the site was back to its redundant state. This has probably taken, and it's been the most challenging project I've ever run, due mostly to the complexity of the SCADA systems and the implementation within a live site. Stakeholder management with this project has been quite important. The fourth project that I currently have running is a new data centre, so that out the back in that car park area. It's part of Telstra's $800 million cloud and data centre investment strategy. We're building one building with 2 1,000 square metre data halls with an average of 3,000 watts per square metre. Full free air cooled, so significantly reducing our operating costs. Leveraging DRUP technology for EPP, so minimising the use of batteries. We're also implementing containment technologies to make sure we hit our PUE targets. At the moment, we haven't settled on containment technologies. The building is still 18 months away, and I don't want to lock myself into anything now that might preclude me from getting access to a newer technology in 18 months' time. Completion due in 2014. And here's a photo of that work in progress. So across all of these projects, we've run over 1,500 individual changes. They've been documented and approved, so a change at Telstra requires significant approval from executive level all the way through our network business, and usually requires about 3 or 4 hours of documentation. So running 1,500 individual changes is a significant amount of time. I've got dedicated individuals running that part of the project because if you don't have a change up, you're not ready for going to a change approval board. You don't get your change up, and you have to wait for the next slot. Managing the day-to-day with 2 and sometimes 3 construction programs requires incredible attention to detail. The construction program managers will always tell you that they're more important than each other. You really have to sit down and assess the risk to the business, the risk to the site, and then the risk to the program in that order. So security and stability are our highest priority, and they always take precedent over the program or any other changes that are being trying to be pushed through the site. Big recommendation here is get to know the stakeholders, and I'll move to my next slide, which is about 6 lessons that I've learnt. Understand who the key stakeholders are. It's important before launching a program like this, and I can only speak for my organisation, but it's a very, very complex, integrated business with many, many stakeholders across all of the horizontal and vertical stacks. Map them to each project and rank their influence. So there's some projects that some stakeholders just not interested in, and some projects that stakeholders will take a huge interest in. So the new data centre, for instance, I've probably got 40 or 50 senior executives who are begging to understand delivery timelines, the quality, when they can get customers through, what changes are going to happen when, what cloud are we laying down, what version of server are we going to use. All of those questions are still long from being answered, but it's managing that expectation through the program. Choose the best comms medium, so whether it be email, face-to-face or newsletters. Some stakeholders just want monthly newsletters, others want face-to-face meetings, and others are quite happy with emails. I know my counterpart in network and IT operations, quite happy with an email until he's not happy with an email and then wants a face-to-face meeting. And he usually lets me know within minutes with a screaming email back to me saying I should be presenting with a face-to-face meeting, not an email. So it's a bit hard to hit your target right sometimes as well. Craft your message to suit the audience. Not everyone knows what a crack unit is. Surprise, surprise. And I know I've got a room full of data centre people, but it does come as a surprise when you start talking about crack units and people start to glaze over because they've lost interest. Timing is critical, so get your executives to sign off earlier. That's my experience. Educate the key decision makers. This work is very complex and there are many, many dependencies, and you need to map out the complexity and the dependencies when running a program of such complexity. So as I said, knowledge, it is a complex business, and knowledge is very, very useful when you've got such a complex environment. Have some really good people. I've hired mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and recently I brought on board a construction program manager. You can't do this without good advice, and you need that good advice very, very close to you. The construction program being run by your constructor and or your properties and facilities group will give you advice, but they'll give you the advice that they want to get their project to an end. Many times you need good counsel about what the risks are to the business, not what the risks are to the program. So I'd urge you to get really, really good people, skilled people onto your personal team before undertaking something like this. Get the design done right the first time. So when you're in the throes of design and you've got a lot of pressure to build out significant data centre footprints or refurbish significant areas of your data centre, there is always an urgency to move to the next step. My experience is to take a breath, slow down, get the design right, and ensure that when you're moving to implementation that you've done all the hard yards on the design and you're not getting to a point where you're having to redesign a chill water loop or increase the size of crack units or increase the size of chillers because somebody missed something. And focus on the end game. So there are many, many issues that come up with projects like this, and I'm wrestling with one at the moment, primarily due to where we are in the funding cycle within the year, and primarily where the construction program is as well. You can get lost in all of these issues, and you can you can end up delaying the project because nobody wants to make a decision. At the end of the day, focus on the end game, getting to where you need to get in the date you need to get there, and focus on getting your executives to make decisions very quickly. It's incredibly expensive, this game, and I don't know what it's like in the airline industry, but I can certainly see the amount of money going out of my pocket, and I can see parallels between the cost of running data centres and the cost of running an airline industry. The faster you make decisions, the faster you get implementation, the quicker you stop the cash flowing out of the organisation on things like delays. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to take some questions. So I think the roving mic is just about to go around now.
Hi, Jon. Your new energy centre in Clayton, is it based on any groundbreaking new technologies, or what have you been able to achieve there?
Look, again, because I was working within in an existing site, nothing truly groundbreaking. It's a N+1 diesel design, modular and scalable. So we've been able to build it so that we can add another 1 or 2 diesels if need be. We've also allowed for future energy sources, so we've built into the design the ability to take a trigen plant if so, but yeah, nothing truly groundbreaking. It's HV reticulation in an N+1, N+N sort of environment, so highly redundant though. So they described it to me as being probably more complex than building the Yolang power station. But Telstra's business requires that 24/7 availability.
Hi, Jon. Alex from NBN. Just a couple of questions, if I may. Mm-hmm. You've mentioned the key to success is to manage your stakeholders and know when to call the design finished.
Yep.
So if you could offer any hints of how to determine when the design is right and stop designing. And second is how do you deal with conflict of requirements between various stakeholders? How do you resolve conflicting expectations and needs from various parts of organization? Thank you.
Let me tackle the second question first, because requirements lead into design. So when we were looking at requirements, we already had our strategy fairly well nailed. The organisation, and you might have found this yourself, everybody's been a data centre designer or a data centre operator. So everybody's got an opinion to add to the many opinions that you get as a data centre operator. At the end of the day, if you're the operator, if you're responsible for operating the end result, your requirements, or in my case, my requirements and those that my team put together, were presented back to the organisation and needed to meet a couple of key criteria. The design had to be scalable, so modular, to build out in line with our business growth, and it had to be resilient. Anything below that was my operational requirement, but it had to meet those 2 key things. So if I could satisfy the stakeholders that I was going to spend capital appropriately and I was going to protect the business appropriately, and I have a procurement vendor manager partner in the room with me, and I was going to do that in the most cost-effective way, then I got the tick in the box. Everything below that, whether we used free air cooling, whether I used drups, whether I used mice on treadmills, that was my decision. And I think you've got to drive accountability through the organisation for what is eventually going to be your decision to run. So if you own end-to-end accountability like I do for data centres in Telstra, from paying the rates, from paying the energy bills, from looking after the building, from making sure the chilled water reticulates, everything to do with that site is my accountability. I'm able to say, well, these are requirements that I need, these are requirements that you need, and I'll satisfy them. Now, in terms of design, wrapping that into design, what we did is issue a brief to a design organisation, and that brief was fairly high level and set out, a number of key objectives, and we asked for a return brief from that design organisation. So the organisation would come back with a documented design, if you like, incorporating our requirements. From there, then we went to a high-level design, and I had it in my team. I had people capable of doing the assurance on that high-level design. And once we got to that stage and resolved all the niggly bits, then we went to detailed design. At no stage did I go back to my stakeholders through that design process, though, because if you've decided on what the requirements are, going back, and this was the opinion of mine and my director, going back to the stakeholders to open up the whole requirements again, and then you're finding that you actually have to wind back things into the detailed design, which is very, very difficult and costly. I hope that answers your question.